fault.
You guys made it difficult.
It was our fault that Barack Obama laid out a bipartisan approach, and Nancy Pelosi and Democrats. Come on, Carlos. Nobody wants to admit this.
No.
Come
on,
stop.
Joe.
Okay,
Joe,
tell me.
How are you going to get $1 trillion worth of stuff through?
Hold on a second, Carlos. You know what I'm about to say.
Yep.
And they're stubborn facts, but I want you to tell me what is wrong with this scenario. Tell me what's incorrect. Barack Obama decides he's going to be a bipartisan president. He lays out a roadmap to a bipartisan stimulus package. He gives it to Larry Summers and David Axelrod. They go to Capitol Hill. Liberals in the Senate and Nancy Pelosi in the House beat the hell out of Larry Summers and David Axelrod so much that they say after that meeting, okay, we get it. In Larry Summers' own words, message received. It will not be a bipartisan bill. How do you blame that on me?
Hold on.
No. First of all, what did I say is not true?
Stinking pile of garbage? You still believe it's a stinking pile of garbage?
Oh, my God, yes.
All $787 billion?
Wait, Carlos, hold on a second. You're not answering my question.
Which part am I not answering? The part where he sat down with both Senate Republicans? Remember, Barack went to both the Senate Republicans?
I'm going to have to ask you to stop.
All right.
And I'm going to have to ask you again to listen to. I laid out that not scenario, that news story that nobody talks about.
You missed key pieces.
But you tell me, did that happen or not? Did Barack Obama not lay out a bipartisan agenda that Nancy Pelosi and Democrats on Capitol Hill undercut?
No.
He did not?
No.
So that story that I read was just fantasy?
Which story? The Ruth Marcus piece that you just read?
No. The story about how Larry Summers, David Axelrod, and Barack Obama were told that Congress would not pass a bipartisan bill, that it had to be partisan.
Here's what I think you're missing in that story. I think a lot of it is right, but here's what I think you're missing. I think you're missing the piece where not only did Obama go out of his way to talk to the 3 senators that came aboard, but you're missing the Voinovich conversations. You're missing the Mel Martinez conversations. And did those guys ultimately come over? No. Were there $280 billion worth of tax cuts in the $787 billion bill? There were. It was clearly a bipartisan bill as much as it could be inside of 3 to 4 weeks. How much more could happen? Joe, in 3 to 4 weeks, how much more could happen? Reasonably speaking, how much more could happen?
Well, one thing they could do, if they just waited till Monday, they could have read the damn bill.
You know what? I'm going to give you the following. That would have been good if they'd had a couple more days to read the bill. I'm not going to disagree with that.
Hold on a second. Hold on. So you're going to give me. Hold on.
I'm going to ask Joe Scarborough from the Panhandle of Florida whether he read every bill in detail when he was in Congress.
Let me tell you this. First of all, thank you so much because you are a generous man to give me the fact, to concede the fact that members of the House and the Senate,
the people's representatives deserve time to read the bill?
Read the bill, the largest spending bill in the history of America, a spending bill that will consume 5% of GDP compared to 2% of GDP consumed by the New Deal. Thank you, Carlos. Now, let me tell you how it usually happened, and I'm glad you asked. I will now answer.
Just happened to be
when I was in Congress, no, this is how it usually happens.
Okay.
On important bills, it's called regular order. What happens is you pass these bills to committees. The committees go through it. They chop it up. Their staff chops it up. So over a 2-week time period, I go to my friends on the floor who are members of that committee. And I go, hey, Largent, what's in that commerce bill? What are you guys looking at? What was the conversation about today for 10 hours in committee? What did you find out with hundreds of staff members and 30 congressmen just tearing the bill to shreds? What did you find out today? And Steve would say to me, you need to look at subsection C. So I would go back to my office that night after the votes and I'd say, guys, look at subsection C. Largent and his staff are concerned. In fact, call his staff. And this would happen with every single committee would take these massive bills.
But Joe, let's be clear, because you know better than me.
No, you asked. Let me finish up.
Okay.
You've got to contrast that process where that happens with 435 members, 435 times, and you get all of this information, and you're digging through this bill, and over a 2-week time period, then you can figure out what's the problem. Does this bill really destroy welfare reform? Does this bill take us back 30 years in welfare policies? I can study that through regular order. But how did it happen here? They came up with a bill. They gave everybody 7 hours to read the bill. It was over 1,000 pages, and it was the biggest spending bill of all time. And when I asked congressmen and senators on Friday, why won't you wait till Monday to read the bill? They said because people will lose their jobs over the weekend. Of course, the bill wasn't signed.
All right. So I'm going to give you that the people's representatives should have gotten a couple more days. But let's be really clear. What you just described, that process, the regular process, is I don't have to tell you that. That's what happens with regular appropriations. That's what's going to happen with the continuing resolution over the next several weeks, right, when they do another $400 billion. And that's what's going to happen when they do the main budget, which will be close to $3 trillion. But you and I both know, and I think you agree, that these are severe times and you had to act. You may not think we should have done $787 billion, but you sure think we should have done something significant. Am I right?
Oh, no doubt about it.
And it had to happen quickly. And the truth of the matter is, Obama kept reaching out for bipartisan help, and people weren't reaching back.
Here's the
Once
problem.
Rush jumped in, people weren't reaching back.
That's just not true. But I know attacking Rush Limbaugh is a great way. That's absolution for all the sins of Nancy Pelosi, of Rahm Emanuel, who told the Wall Street Journal.
Go ahead and throw David Obey in there. Go ahead and throw Obey in there.
No, it's the truth. It's the truth.
Let me ask you, it's part of the truth, not all the truth.
Hold on a second. When you have Rahm Emanuel bragging to the Wall Street Journal, and you're smirking because you know it.
I'm smirking because Dylan's over here saying, when's the last time Rahm Emanuel's called the Wall Street Journal to brag? He's going to call the Times.
Rahm Emanuel bragged to the Wall